What is going on, and welcome back into Barley Studios for another awesome video. Now, as you can see, we're running through the highlight clip of a previous video where I was sculpting out of a Monster Maker Monsterclay Medium this 3D ultrasound of me and my wife's third child. Super exciting. It's the first time we were able to do a 3D ultrasound, and I thought to myself, man, I could really sculpt that and turn that into some kind of piece of art or something and challenge myself. And lo and behold, I went ahead and sculpted that out of Monsterclay. Now we're using Smoothon MoldStar 15 to make a silicone mold of this. This is just a throwaway mold, so it's a one-time thing. I'm not really going out of my way to make it super extravagant. I just want to get a mold that I can pour my plaster into and get my final piece of art out of it. I'm also using this as a means just to practice mixing and pouring the silicone, getting perfect dispersion over the item. As you can see here, this is actually too big of a Tupperware container. I actually downgrade the size in just a minute. As you can see, I'm not a master of making molds, but you got to start somewhere, and I'm willing to share my mistakes with you. So I end up having to kind of like, even though that piece of clay is suctioned down to the bottom of that container, I do pull that up in a few moments, and I place it actually in one of my kids' old lantern buckets, trick-or-treating buckets, which is just the absolute perfect size. And then I just go ahead and just make sure I got a good firm film over all of the surfaces before I move on to the next stage. But as you can see here, it's starting to set up, it's starting to disperse, but there's a lot of clay that's really showing out above the level line of the smooth on silicone. So as you can see, here it comes in the jack-o'-lantern bucket. And it's a smaller version here, guys, so it's nothing super ornate. I even used some excess silicone from another project and kind of just layered that in there as well. And it just takes on the same characteristics after it fully cures up. We're going to go ahead and score the edges of the bucket here and pull this out, and then we can see how it turned out. Alright, so with a little bit of work and finagling, I was able to get that thing to pop out of the bottom of the bucket. And like I said, this is a throwaway mold, so I'm not willing to drill any holes in that bucket just because I want it to come out easier, you know. So I had to fight the suction that's created from the silicone mold in the bottom of the bucket. And it's okay. Once it's out, it's all good. So I did overfill this. I didn't glue the clay down in any way to the actual plastic. So it did have some silicone underneath it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in with an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to cut just a nice even circle out around the base of the mold here. This is just a little bit extra, which means that if I needed to, I could technically sand this raised edge down a little bit and make it super duper flat on the back. After it's all said and done, you'll kind of see that it actually turns out quite well, even after I pour it to this fill line here. So it's no big deal. I'm not really worried about it. If I was wanting to make something like this for mass production, I'd probably be a lot more detailed with how I did the silicone mold. But because I'm just trying to get the one cast out of it successfully, I'm not really too worried about it. My X-Acto knife is really dull here, you guys. That's why I do multiple cuts on the same thing. I just need to go purchase some new ones. I just haven't got around to it yet. Then we're just going to go ahead and peel the edges back and pull the master cast out here, and we'll see what it looks like here. Look at that. Absolute perfection. And of course, the original master clay is still fully intact, which means we will be able to do an awesome monster clay melt where I'll melt it down into the existing bucket. It's just kind of fun. I'll probably put that in a TikTok and Instagram form, but also maybe tag it at the end of this video. So stay tuned for that. It's just really satisfying to see the final sculpture that I spent hours and hours making just kind of melt into nothing. So there's our silicone mold there. You can kind of see some of the details, but of course because it's reversed, or the inverse of the existing is the negative, you know, so it looks a little bit different. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and set that off to the side. We're pretty much done with the actual clay portion of this build, and now I'm just going to use Plaster of Paris. I don't really gauge how much water and Plaster of Paris I actually mix up sometimes, guys. I actually needed to do this in 2 batches because I didn't make enough, but I'd rather make just enough than too much and waste it all. So it's not really expensive or anything, it's just something just easy to use. The Plaster of Paris, I think I got it for $4 for like 2 pounds or so in a large carton at Walmart. So it's not badly priced up in any way. If you were doing something substantially large, it'd be a little bit different. But this is just something small, and I was able to pick a few of those containers up, so it's kind of handy. So there's that first pour there. You can see that the water is coming to the surface there as it all settles into where it needs to be. And what we'll do is we'll mix a little bit more and then fill it up, and then I'll just use the popsicle stick and nudge the edges of the silicone just to kind of level it out. Pushing that down with the popsicle stick. I'm also trying to make sure that it's kind of patted down and there's no like massive air pockets underneath the Plaster of Paris. There are a few air bubbles in there after I remove it, I'll be honest with you guys. But because I do a little bit of cleanup work with an X-Acto knife after the fact, it's really no big deal. There's that second coat there, and then kind of smooth it out and just kind of pinch it and make sure it's going into the edges of that mold. Pour a little bit of excess, and it won't hurt anything. And then that way, if it does settle down over the next 15-20 minutes while it's actually doing its original setup, then it's no big deal. Kind of push the edges there of the silicone and kind of let it do a self level. And then I will set this off to the side for about 48 hours or so. You could probably get by with 24 hours, but I tend to, I want to make sure that those simple but high level details on the face and stuff and the hands really do hold. So here we are. We were able to pull this out of the silicone mold here, and this is what we have so far. Alright, so this is just quite a bit of cleanup work with the X-Acto knife. I'm shaving some high spots down, smoothing out around the forehead, around the edges, and I'll actually have to break some pieces of the plaster off. You can see I also got a large air pocket right there above the upper lip, and so I have to do a lot of cleanup work there. That's a lot of shaving off of the plaster. It's not difficult in any way. I'm not saying that it is. It's just one extra thing that I had to do. So also kind of pushing out some of those bubbles there and leveling off the plaster around where the arm is, and then of course, like I said, most of the cleanup work is around the nose and that lip area. There you can kind of see I've got most of that removed there. It looks quite good, and I'm really happy with how it's turning out. Breaking some of that plaster off there. There was just some edges that just kind of over pour. We'll go with that. So I'm breaking some of that off, and then I'll use the X-Acto knife to smooth these out before I do a light sanding with I think it's like a 200 grit sandpaper, just to smooth it out, give it like a more of a porcelain look before we go into any kind of painting. I'm really still deciding which color I want to paint this. I know that we did decide to make the board that all of this is going to go onto a dark walnut, so it's a very dark board. So I'm thinking about making this a bronze with maybe a pink patina. I thought that'd be kind of cool. Instead of like a blue patina, it'd be a pink patina, since it is, after all, a girl. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be in the next video of this series. So stay tuned for that. And you will be able to find all of this under the playlist 3D Ultrasound. Smoothing all that off with that sandpaper there, hitting it all over, even the eye, the nose, and around the hands and fingers. Looking pretty good, you guys. I'm really happy with how it turned out. for me, kind of mod podging, just throwing the mold together out of remnants of what I had, making do, switching the bucket out because it was not small enough for the amount of silicone that I had. I was able to get by and get the project done. Luckily, right? I think the cast turned out pretty good, and I was able to practice my techniques a little bit by just reusing some of the old stuff that I had laying around the studio. Pretty good. Cleaning up some of the last few details there, making sure that like there's no high raised burrs or spikes, and then there's the original, and there's the plaster cast. Looking pretty good, you guys. I do go ahead and rinse this off with water and let it dry again. It's ready for paint. So while we're waiting here, please sit back and enjoy me melting this monster clay back into the original bucket. I hope y'all enjoyed this video, me casting with the Plaster of Paris in a Smoothon 15 slow mold from Smoothon. I will catch you guys on the next video.
Thank you for watching! Check out all of these awesome videos.